The apparel chain Forever 21 has been in the news a lot lately. Unfortunately, not in a good way because the company has filed for bankruptcy and reorganization. That's really a shame. You know, Forever 21 is a great example of an aspirational brand. It's a success story founded by Korean immigrants and employing multiple generations in the company and all that. So it's really a shame to see that it's fallen on hard times. We can ask ourselves, what's the reason for this? Because it has been an incredibly popular store with young people, especially teenagers, for many years. It's easy to point fingers, and there are some obvious reasons. One of them is very simply that there's just too many retail stores out there. Even when you're dealing with a market like teenagers who have a lot of discretionary income, there are only so many places they're going to go to shop. Many of them are choosing to spend their money on other kinds of feel-good products, especially tech. And there's just a lot of stores competing for too few dollars, especially as younger people increasingly are shopping online. So Forever 21 really is a success story that was brought down by its own success, because I think clearly they got a bit too ambitious. They started to open way too many stores, more than they could handle, and to expand, just to open really big stores that had trouble being profitable. But more generally, this is a symptom of a much bigger problem, and that is that the fast fashion industry is in big trouble right now. So in addition to Forever 21, you have chains like H&M and Zara that are hurting. They're not in as bad a shape, of course, but they have a lot to worry about, and for good reason. And that basic reason is that really what they're selling is actually antithetical to what young people are now starting to look for. So fast fashion was a success because it gave people what they craved, and that is newness. So you could always count on going to a store like H&M and finding something new on the racks every couple of weeks, as opposed to other stores where it might take months to replenish inventory. So that's terrific, but now we start to see a sea change in values, where people are realizing that that is poisoning the well, because the apparel industry in particular happens to be the second most polluting industry after the oil and gas industry. And so as the industry feels pressure to create more and more new, cheap products, it is adding to our environmental issues, so that's a big issue. There are concerns about worker safety and sweatshops and so on that young people are starting to wake up to. That can be a big problem. So ironically, like fast food, fast fashion can come back to bite you, because people are starting to be more interested in slow fashion, and in particular in recycling used clothes. So we see big chains like Macy's now that are starting to open up pop-up stores within the store that actually are selling used clothing. But there's another reason, I believe, for Forever 21's problems, and that's what I like to refer to as the Levis Paradox. The reason I call it that is that when you look at a company like Levi Strauss, which is doing great now, but for many years had a problem, the problem was partly due to the fact that Levi's started out as a very cool kind of product that was kind of exclusive, not in the price sense, but in the sense that you had to be in the know. It was worn by cool people like James Dean, the actor, for example. So the paradox is that as Levi's, like other fashion brands, starts to get more and more popular because young people think of it as being cool and not everybody wears it, etc., that's where the paradox comes in, because now everybody starts to buy that brand and it's no longer cool. So you can also think about a brand like, say, Harley Davidson that has the same issue there. The paradox is it's cool because only outsiders, drive the hogs and so on, And then everybody wants to drive the hog. And now you've got grandparents like me, maybe, who are out there riding motorcycles. Now it's no longer cool. So the paradox for fashion brands, as epitomized by Levi's, I think, is that they have to manage that kind of growth. Forever 21 didn't do that very well. And as a result, a lot of its styles started to look, many people describe them as cookie cutters. So they no longer had that edge. They no longer were unique. And so Forever 21 became a victim of its own success. And unfortunately, that's why maybe Forever 21 won't be with us forever.